everyone, this is Debbie from Project 39 Mini Albums. This video is the tutorial on how to make this mini album. I use the paper collection P.S. I Love You from Graphic 45. There is a video that shows you that shows you the walkthrough of the book. So that's linked in the description box. Go click on that. I'll put it up near the top of the box. Go click on that for a walkthrough. But since this is a long tutorial, I'm just going to get started with it. So here we go with the tutorial on how to make this mini album. All right, to cover the book, I am going to take 3 pieces of cardstock. It is 8.5 by 11. I'm going to put a piece of 1/4-inch double-sided permanent adhesive on the long side, so on the 11-inch side of 2 of those pieces. We're going to join this together. This is 65-pound cardstock. This is the Recollections brand that I'm using, but you can use whatever paper you're comfortable with to make your book. I switch back and forth between the 65 and the 110. Most of the page features you'll see are using the heavyweight cardstock. I'll peel off the backing paper, and then using my surface, because it's got the lines on it, I just put that 1/4 inch right over the line with the bottom against one of the straight edges, and just use that to line things up, trying to get a good straight fold. It's not critical if you don't get a perfect join, not a fold, a join, but it helps. It makes things look nice. And now I'll take the next piece and do the same thing. I find having that surface works. I also have been known to use my scoreboard, but since I have 3 pieces, it'll be cumbersome. It'll be a little bit too long, so I'm just using my surface. Okay, once I get a good join, I'll take my bone folder and burnish and make sure that it's attached very well. Now I've already cut my chipboard, so I have 2 pieces, 2 1/4 by 8.5, and 2 pieces of cardstock chipboard that are 8.5 by 7. I'll take one piece and put it against the side. I'm using a T-square just to keep it straight. I have about 1 inch from the side to where the chipboard is. You know, I wasn't too fussy about how uh, even it was from top to bottom. I just made sure it was straight side to side. I put down a piece of the 1/4-inch score tape right next to that first piece of chipboard, just sort of butted up to it, and then I burnish. Now I'll take one of my larger pieces, the 8.5 by 7 of chipboard, and put that on next. As you can see, I cover the back with, I have to burnish it real well, but I cover most of the back with that double-sided permanent adhesive. I find it uh, holds better. I normally use the glue from the Art Glitter Company, otherwise known as Art Glitter Glue. There's no glitter in it, it's just the name of the company. I use that for most of putting the book together, except for the cover. So now I'm putting this right butted up against that piece of 1/4-inch tape. It's the chipboard is just overlapping that 1/4-inch tape slightly. So I'll put down that 8.5 by 7 piece, and then I will put another piece of 1/4-inch double-sided permanent adhesive, burnish it, peel off that, and then add the second spine. I probably should have burnished this tape onto it before I started filming the video, but you'll forgive me. And then also, too, you can burnish it once we get that cardstock on it, and I do. So it will adhere real well. You won't get any air bubbles in the cardstock, I can tell you that. All right, and then another piece of the 1/4" score tape. It's this one I'm using is from scrapbook.com. And then the other cover. I'll burnish that real well. Peel off the backing. Sometimes I save that backing for when I'm doing die cutting. Since it's similar to wax paper, I'm moving this over because I noticed there were some areas I didn't burnish real well. So that's why I'm moving that backing paper over just to burnish it. And then again, I'll line it up on that double-sided adhesive, just putting the edge of my chipboard onto the edge of the double-sided adhesive. All right, so you notice there's about 5 inches left. I'm gonna cut off some of it. I'm cutting off all but 1.5 inches. So I have 1.5 inches on that one side. I'm going to be adding another piece to the front of it, but so for right now, I'm just going to cover all 4 of these pieces with the chipboard. I'll use my bone folder to burnish with the chipboard facing down so I can see the edge of where my paper is. I'm actually going fairly gently with the bone folder. I don't want to cause a hole in the paper. Then I'll use my table and push down and just fold a little bit. This helps train the paper. So then once I add the adhesive, it will lie flat. And I'm just using my fingers just to burnish it. You could use a bone folder. It's just so large. I'm using my hands. Okay, now I'm going to use a straight edge. See, I want to stay about 1/8 of an inch from that corner of the chipboard. I don't do really a straight cut. I go in towards the chipboard and then come out a little bit. You could do a straight cut if you wanted to. There was a piece of overhang on there, so I took that off. And then one more. I know I'm not very technical with this. I've estimated I've made somewhere in the neighborhood of 600-700 mini albums. So I've just gotten my procedure down and I do what works for me. Now, if you want to veer from this and do something different, you are quite welcome to. All right, I put my glue from the Art Glitter Company in this little squeeze bottle. It just helps. I do have to fill it fairly regularly, probably fill it twice while I'm working on this one mini album because I seem to use a lot of glue, but it helps me get the right amount of glue out. So I place it along the edge of the chipboard, then along the edge of the cardstock, and then zigzag it in between. I'll take my bone folder and push that cardstock right up against the edge so it will adhere to where I put the glue. And then starting at the spine or the middle of the page, I pull it down and then try to get a nice crease at the very edge. Then I take the edge of my bone folder and pull it down towards me, again, making sure there's a good crease at the edge and burnishing, distributing all that glue that is on our cardstock. I know you've seen people use permanent adhesive on the chipboard and on the cardstock as well as glue. I just use the glue because you're going to cover this. As I say, the cardstock's not going to go anywhere. I'll burnish into that crevice in between the pieces of chipboard. Now let's go ahead and do the other side. Again, a bead of glue right against the edge of the chipboard. Looks like it's thicker in some areas than others, but it'll distribute when you use your bone folder. Then I go up against the edge, staying about 1/8 of an inch from the edge of the cardstock, zigzagging all the way down. I need to squeeze harder because I am running out of glue. And then take my bone folder and burnish. And I'll do the same with the short sides as well. All right, so I sped up the video here. I do take the edge of my bone folder and push in just at the corner there, just to make sure that it doesn't fold out. I would rather it fold in than fold out, but if you forget it, then just take your bone folder and push it in, maybe add a touch of glue. I'm wiping off the glue, pushing in those corners, putting more glue along the chipboard, the edge of the cardstock, fold, and burnish. And there we go. We are done with the cover. I take the edge of the bone folder and go against the edge just to make sure it's a nice, crisp, clean look. I'll fold everything, and then here I decide, well, I've already decided, I'm going to add a piece. Okay, I have another piece of chipboard that is 1 3/4 by 8 1/2. I am going to take my ruler and make a mark at 4 1/4 on the long side. I'm going to take my ruler and make a mark at 1/2 inch on both sides. And then I'm going to draw from that 1/2 inch to that 4 1/4. And I'll do that to both sides. Just trying to get it as even as possible. And then I will cut that. All right, so we've got that little angle on it. I don't think my pencil line went up to the 4 1/4 inch mark, so I was redrawing it. You also could cut one side and then take that piece that you cut and use that as a template and cut the other side. So I'm taking a straight edge, an X-Acto, and cutting that piece. Rather than doing one side, one cut really deep and strong, I do 3 or 4 lighter cuts, just so my ruler doesn't move, and just so it's a nice, smooth, straight cut. Okay, there we go. Okay, so I have a piece that's 5 inches by 11. I've already put some double-sided adhesive on this. Before I cut it, I did that. All right, and I'm using my T-square to line up about 1.5 inches from the edge of the cardstock and center it on the cardstock. Burnish it real well. And then I use my bone folder to find the edge of the chipboard. I'll show you how we treat that angle in just a second. All right, so then, and I use my surface to fold everything. Don't go ahead and glue because we're going to treat this a little different. I'll fold first one side and then the other for that angle piece. And then take my blade and go right from the corner point out. Fold the top and the bottom. And then I'll take my X-Acto and cut down from, cut the corners off. It's a little funky where that one angle piece is, but that's okay. And then the top and bottom piece I'm going to fold over. I'm going to trim down that angle piece just because it's going to be too big and I don't want too much overhang. So I'm just taking my ruler. The ruler is 1 inch wide, so I'm just leaving a 1 inch piece. First I'll do the top and bottom. I'm going to just make sure there's no overhang. So I'm taking my scissors, putting it up against the chipboard and slicing. All right, and then I will add a little glue to those top and bottom pieces. Burnish it, fold it over. You don't want any of the chipboard to show. If you do have any chipboard showing, just grab a black marker and cover it. Then I will fold over each one of these angled pieces individually. And there won't be, you really shouldn't have any of the cardstock showing here because it overlaps right at that tip point. Add some more adhesive and fold that over. All right, don't glue down that one flap, because what we're going to do is turn the book over, and on the side that's got one of the spine pieces, not the part that's got the larger piece of chipboard, we're going to attach this. So on the side with the cardstock, not the chipboard side showing, I'm going to add a just a piece of 1/4 inch tape and a bead of glue. I used the ruler just so I could get a straight line. I'm about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. All right, I'm just trying to get this uh, piece to be flat. And now I'm putting my that corner piece right on. So you see the chipboard side still faces, it still faces the same way of the chipboard piece in the other one. I had a little bit of overhang. I usually don't, but I'm just taking an X-Acto and cutting that off. And then I'll take a small piece of cardstock, probably about 5 inches, and it's going to be just a smidgen under 8.5. 8 7/8, just a little bit smaller. And we're going to cover both of those creases, the one from that angled piece and where that first spine is. So I'm going to add some glue on both sides of the crease. And then I'll fill it in with some glue. And I'm going to add some around the perimeter of that scrap piece. It actually looks like it's about 3.5 inches wide. So we're going to match it up at the bottom, make sure it's even on the top, burnish real well. And then using the blunt edge of my bone folder, go in where those creases are and make sure you're just help bending the paper. I probably could have made it a little bit bigger. There's such a small piece on that one side, but that's okay. So again, we're going to bend it, make sure it will fold easy, keep burnishing. So that is bent back. I'm making sure it's got a good fold to it. So I have to sort of manipulate it. You'll know. Just make sure it's got a really good fold. And going back and forth, and there we go. There is the flap of the book. All right, we're going to make the hinge system. So you're going to get a piece that's 7.5 by 11, and score every half an inch from 2 to 7.5. Does anyone else get excited about making hinges? I always think it's so much fun. So 7.5 by 11, score every half inch from 2 to 7.5. So the 11-inch side is at the top. I'm starting at 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5, 5, 5.5, 6, 6.5, 7, 7.5, stop. All right, so let's remove it from the scoreboard. Going to turn it upside down so the bumps are facing down. In between the first half-inch set of hinges, so don't fold it at the first score line, but fold it the second. And after that, you're going to fold it at the third one from that, and then the third one, and then the third one. So what you're doing is folding it between each hinge. So you'll have a hinge, hinge, gusset, hinge, hinge, gusset. And you can write HHG underneath so you can make sure you're folding it and the score line in between two hinges. So you'll see there are 4 signatures, so there's 4 mountains. I pull the paper towards me and take that mountain and crease it with my fingers and my thumbs. And then I go to the next one. Since we've already scored that, it's going to naturally, if you pull the paper towards you, the hinge will pop up. The mountain will stand up. Then while all of those hinges are facing up, I'll take my bone folder and burnish, fold them away from me, push them away, and take my bone folder and burnish. Now I don't have any glue, I'm just training the paper, but we're going to add glue now. So what I will do is put it in the channel. Now the point is facing down. So I zigzag it across the whole channel and then come up real close to the top edge. I do try to stay away from the sides. Maybe I'll stay 1/4 of an inch away from the sides with the glue. And then I'll use my fingers to burnish that glue and distribute it throughout that hinge. I'll use my bone folder to help distribute it. So there you see, it's nice and tight at the bottom. Do it again, zigzag glue, do a line of glue, a bead of glue near the very top, which actually will be the bottom of the hinge when you turn it over. Since I'm in a moist climate, it's pretty humid out and it's cool. My glue is not drying very quickly, and I've done this a time or two, so I'm going to add glue to the 3 remaining hinges and then put them together. I would suggest, if you haven't done this very often, just do one at a time and make sure you've got good adhesion before you rush ahead. So again, I'll take my bone folder and burnish, fold the hinges away from me, and burnish again. Again, I'm just training the paper so it can go back and forth once we get pages in it. So I will go back and forth several times, which helps distribute the glue and train the paper. And then lastly, I will face them all in the same direction, facing up. And then you'll see that the folds are very close together. I'm going to grab my book, take my hinge without any glue. I'm going to dry fit it to see exactly how it's going to fit. Now I like to have the wing, that little flap, the flap on the left side and the right side. I like to hold it in my right hand, but it doesn't matter at all. It's just how I like it. That's why I played around with it. And I want to make sure that not only is it even top to bottom, but there's the same amount of space on each side between where the end of the hinge is and the beginning of the crease. Now I'll take my glue and add it right in that hinge, that line from where the bottom of the hinges join. And then I will add glue and zigzag it again throughout. I'm a little more generous with my glue here And I'm working fairly quickly because I don't want it to dry on the paper. That would be the worst thing in the world. But I'm adding a reasonable amount of glue because this is going on the hinge, and it's real important that the hinge system stays in place. So I just put it between that first hinge and the last hinge. I am eyeballing it, and then once I have it where I want, I take my finger and go from the top down and from the bottom up again to distribute the glue. I don't want the glue coming out the top or bottom. That's why I go from the top to the middle and from the bottom to the middle. And I start in the center and I work my way out, just using my finger in through the gusset. Now, if you don't like, some people don't like the feeling of the paper, use your bone folder, but be careful you're not using a pointed edge. Just use the side of your bone folder. And then I'll take my bone folder and burnish. I'll move all the hinges to one side, burnish real well with the side of the bone folder. Move them all to the other side and burnish again. I'll go against the side of the hinge just to make sure there's a good line there, even though there's not much glue. So here I'm pulling it back and then adding glue onto the chipboard up to where the crease is, or the division where the one chipboard ends and the other one starts. I'm not putting it in there because that's where we have that double-sided adhesive, but I am putting it at the top and bottom where the cardstock is folded over from the front. I'm zigzagging some more glue, and then I'll put it down and take my bone folder and burnish real close to the hinge. I started at the top, went down to the bottom, and then started at the bottom, went towards the top. And then I will take the blunt edge of my bone folder. Oh, a little bit of glue was seeping out. So I'll burnish it again. There's my blunt edge of my bone folder and going in that crevice between the two pieces of chipboard. As I do that, I'm bending the whole book up a little bit more so I can get that cardstock to meet with that double-sided adhesive and adhere. And then I will just take the side of the bone folder and burnish down that side flap. I'm not going to bend the book at this point. It's more important to let things dry. All right, so I'm doing the same with the other side, adding glue on one side of the channel, right next to the channel, covering the little bit of cardstock, and then on the other side of the channel. I'll add glue to that flap just to make sure that stays down. And I'll take my bone folder and go right up to the hinge, start at the top, go to the middle, start at the bottom, go to the middle, distributing the glue. Then I'll take the blunt end of my bone folder and burnish as I move the book so I can get into where that double-sided adhesive is and have it meet up with the the cardstock. Now I'll fold it a little bit, burnish it one more time, make sure that the paper is going to stay flat, and I will let that dry. So there is the hinge. Okay, now I've cut 8 pieces of 6.5 by 8 cardstock. I still am using the 65 pound. I haven't gone to the 110 yet. I will put the larger side at the top and score at 1/2 inch on all 8 of these pieces. There are 4 pages, so we'll need 2 per each page. I'm going to miter the corners. So to do that, I take where the crease is and just go from where we've scored it and cut up just a little sliver of paper. So do that with all 8 pieces, starting at that score line and going up on from that crease mark up to the top of the paper. And after you do that, I want you to burnish on the score line on all 8 pieces of cardstock. Then we're going to grab 2 pieces. So take one and the fold line will be at the top, and turn the other one over so the fold line is at the bottom facing in the opposite direction. So I have them stacked up against each other with the sides matching. I will lift up that tab, add glue to it, and then fold it down, turn the whole thing over, and now I have another tab at the top. I'll add glue to it and burnish that, and that gives us our first page. So do that with the other 3 sets of paper. What we're doing is we're making tubes, and the tubes will fit onto the hinge, and that's how you make the pages. So after we get all these glued, then we'll go ahead and attach the pages to the book. Okay, so bring your book in, and I start at the back of the book, and what I do is take one of the tubes and dry fit it, make sure it's going to fit. If for some reason it doesn't fit, you can take scissors and cut off the top corner of that hinge. So I will add glue to the top half of the hinge on one side and then flip it over and do the other side. So again, it's the top half of the hinge. I don't have glue going all the way down. I put my tube onto that hinge. I go down to the bottom and then I pull it back just a little bit, just about 1/8 of an inch. Now, I've done this a lot. Before you go real quick and burnish it, open and close that page and make sure that it is even. By that I mean that the bottom and top of the page are parallel to the bottom and top of the book. So we'll go ahead and do that with the other 4 remaining pages and get them all in the book, making sure they are all lined up with the preceding page as well as the top and bottom of the book. If for some reason, if your hinge is out of whack, if it's not in straight, or if it wasn't scored straight, it's going to throw everything off. You have a couple of choices. You have 2 choices, really. Either you could deal with it, or you could rip it out and start again. Sorry, but once the hinge is wonky, there's no going back. So just take your time and do it. And if it's wonky, it's just paper. Just pull it up. You're going to cover it again. Just make sure it's right. It's just paper. But hopefully that hasn't happened to you. And after you get all the pages in and you know they're nice and straight, take your bone folder and burnish. What I like to do is open up all the pages one way and burnish across it, burnish across, go page by page and burnish, and then go the other way and burnish, just to make sure you've got good adhesion, and it also helps the pages turn a little easier. All right, are you ready to get started? I'm excited about this. So the first thing we're going to do is the front cover and the page 1. The front cover has this flap, which has some extra room to put a couple of photos. The magnet will go on there. So don't cover anything until you've got this magnet on in the cover. And the inside front cover, this goes like this. So the inside front cover is this, we'll turn this flap and then that flap, and then we'll have a waterfall. So let me show you how that's done. All right, for the inside, well, actually this is for the cover. For the cover, I'm going to take a piece of heavyweight cardstock that's 8.5 by 11. With the 11-inch side at the top, I'm going to score it at 1 and at 7 3/4. We're going to use a longer flap to attach it to the pages. And then I'm going to fold this back just because I want this to be extra strong. So I'll show you that in a second. But let's do our second piece of paper, which will also be the second page, the inside front cover. You're going to need a piece that's 7.5, I'm sorry, 7 by 8.5. That one we will score at 1/2 inch and at 3/4. I will also take a corner rounder and round the corners. The next piece you will need is 4.5 by 8.5. We will score this one with the short side at the top at 1/2 inch and at 3/4. And I'm also going to round the corners of this one. Okay, let's grab our papers. And first I'm going to take the first piece that we scored and I'm going to fold on the score lines. What I'm going to do again is adhere that larger flap down right onto the paper. And honestly, it doesn't matter whether you do it onto the front or the back. I'll burnish it real well. And grab some glue. I didn't feel the need to miter this. If you want to, you can, but the paper was pretty straight. If yours is a little wonky, you might feel like you need to miter it. So I'll just adhere that, get a good adhesion. All right, and then I will miter that 1-inch tab. And I'll fold and burnish on the score line. And again, this is going to go on the front cover of the book. It sort of has that little hidden page. It's going to go to the far left-hand side. There will be about a 1/4 inch that is exposed. That way you know that there is something below it. Add some glue to that tab and adhere that again to the left side of our front cover. I'm making sure it's straight on the sides and top and bottom of the page. And then burnish on top, open it up, and burnish inside. So there we go. All right, now let's adhere the 2 flaps to the inside front cover. Now what I'll do is fold and burnish on the score lines. Miter the corners. I guess I should have mitered the corners first. Fold and burnish on the score lines. This piece is going to go onto the left side of the book. And this piece will go onto the right side of the book. And then we have a waterfall in the inside front cover. So to make the waterfall, you will need 7 pieces of cardstock that are 6.5 by, I can't read my writing, 6.5 by 5. With the 5-inch side at the top, you're going to simply score it 1/2 inch. And do that for all 7 pieces. You can, if you choose to round the corners, you can round the corners. And get those all ready, but you will first need to adhere pattern paper before you add the waterfall. So put down the pattern paper and then start about 1/2 inch from the top centered, put in the first piece. Then you'll butt up the next one to the bottom of that flap and continue until you get to the 7th piece. Don't adhere this 7th one on the bottom yet. What you'll need is a piece that is 2 inches by 4.5. Put the 4.5 side at the top, score it 1/2 inch, and that will go underneath that last piece. Then you'll go ahead and glue everything down, and I use a magnet for this. So that's how to make the waterfall. I'm sorry I don't have it as I was doing it. That was part of the decorating, and I didn't record that. Then after that, then the front of page 1 looks like this. It's simply a flap with a little piece. This was cut from one of the cut aparts. I layered that up several times, but that is all there is to page 1. Let me show you how to cut that. I have it labeled as 1F just in case you are wondering. So I have a piece cut 7 by 7.5. With the 7-inch side at the top, we're going to score at 1/2 and at 5/8. 1/2 and 5/8. I have a piece that's 3 by 7.5, and I'm going to do the same thing. 1/2 and 5/8. So I'm going to take these and grab my mini album. And I'm going to miter. So I'm going to cut this at an angle up to that first score line. And I'll do that for this one as well. And then I'm going to use my bone folder and burnish on our score lines. So we've got two that are real close together. So I first did one, and then I'll do the other. You just have to manipulate the paper. There we go with that. And do the same with my other one. All right. I'm going to adhere the larger piece to the left-hand side of the page. Put it on the page, not on the score line. And when I'm putting it on, I make sure it's parallel to the top and bottom, as well as making sure that it is even on the side. And then I'll open that up and add glue to this piece and put this on the right side of the page. So that is the front of page 1. Now we're going to work on the back of page 1. Okay, this is what we're going to work on next. This is the back of page 1. What it is I have a closure here, and then this will open, and then there's a pocket here with a photo mat. So just a flap on the left and a pocket attached to the right-hand side. The two pieces you'll need to cut are 6 3/4 by 7, and one piece that's 5.5 by 8.5. The 5.5 by 8.5 will put the 5.5 side at the top, score at 1/2 inch. Rotate it so the 8.5 sides at the top, score at 1/2 inch and at 8. This is going to make a pocket. So I'm going to just cut across the X created by those score lines. Miter this 1/2 inch tab at the top. And then I'll fold and burnish, and then I'll show you where that goes. In the meantime, we're going to take the 6 3/4 by 7 with the 7-inch side at the top, score at 1/2 inch, and at 3/4. So this is going to go on the left-hand side of the book. Of course, we'll miter at that 1/2 inch. And then burnish. So again, this will go on the left-hand side of the page. This pocket will go on the right-hand side of the page. And then you'll put a swing tab or some kind of closure over here. I'm going to fold and burnish on the score lines and make this a pocket. And now we'll put that in the book. So what I'm going to do is add glue just to this longer tab. So I'm going to add glue here. Then I'm going to grab some packing tape. You could use Scotch tape if you had it. It doesn't have to be this wide. And I'm just going to put it across this flap that I put down. And it's a little bit too big there, so I'm just going to cut that down. And I'll burnish. So just in case I put a piece of designer paper on here, if it doesn't go, if I put something in the pocket, it's not going to get stuck. Then I'll add glue to these side tabs, or the top and bottom ones, right now in this orientation. And put that down and burnish. And then after I put it down, I'm going to push on the edge here, just so this comes out a little bit. And the next piece, the 6 3/4 by 7, ignore what I wrote on there. Putting the folded side on the left, you're going to add glue to that 1/2 inch tab and adhere it to the left-hand side of the page. So you'll have a flap with the pocket. If you want, you can round the corners of this page. The front of page 2 has this flap with a pocket. It's got another page that goes up. Then it's got a page that goes to the right, one to the left, and room for a photo in the center. All right, for the front of page 2, we're going to start, I think there's five pieces before we're done. So we have these 2 pieces. One is 4.5 by 6. And the next one is 5 by 7.5, not by 8.5. So with the 6 inch side at the top, I'm going to score it 1/2 inch, and at 5.5. Rotate. So now the 4.5 sides at the top and score it 1/2 inch. We have a piece that's 5 by 7.5. With the 7.5 side at the top, score it 1/2 inch and 3/4. So I'm going to work on these 2 pieces. I'm going to miter the corners of this piece. And on here, I'm going to miter the corners up here at the top. And then go across the X caused by the 2 score lines at the bottom. So now I'm going to take this piece, and what I'm going to do is I really should go that way. I'm going to put glue on the inside of this bottom tab and put that at the bottom. So it's actually attached to the back. Then I'm going to add glue to these tabs and attach these to the front. If I attached them to the back, it should fit, but they would be very tight. So I'm just going to keep them on the front. And once we put pattern paper, even if it just goes in half an inch or whatever, it's still going to allow the whatever we put in to go down. So I put it on and I squeeze that just so you still can get something in like that. I'm going to put this aside for a second. I also have a piece that is 6.5 by 8.5. I'm going to put the 8.5 side at the top and score at 3/4 and 1. Miter on the corners and hold that aside for later. I also have two pieces that are 5.5 by 6 3/4. Now with the six 3/4 at top, we're going to score at half an inch. So we'll score here at half an inch and here at half an inch. And then I'll miter the corners. Oops. All right, I'm going to grab my book. So this is for the front of page 2. So I'm first going to put down the 5 by 8.5 inch piece. So I'll add glue to that. And that I'm going to center on the top. If you need to measure it or use a centering ruler, that would be fine. All right. Then I've got this 6.5 by 8.5. I'm going to fold and burnish on my score lines. And I'll add glue to this 3/4 inch tab. I just wanted this a different length than the other ones, or else there'd be a big bump right there. So this is going to go on the top of the page. Just have it a little smidgen below the score line of this piece, just so it will go on without a problem. Okay, and then here we have the 5 by 6.5 inch piece. We have two of those. So one's going to go on the right and one's going to go on the left. So I'm going to put one on the top left. I'm about 1/8 of an inch from the bottom score line here. And then one's going to go on the bottom right. Now you could center it if you want, whatever you want to do with these. So again, 1/8 of an inch from the bottom. I'm going to put it on the page and burnish. So this will go like this. This will come down. And then this will come down. And we'll use a graphic 45 tag to put in that pocket. So that is for the front of page 2. Here's the back of page 2. We have a flap that goes up, a flap that comes down, and this also has a pocket in it. So there's room there for a photo mat. And then this opens up like that. So that's the back of page 2 that we're going to work on now. Okay, for the back of page 2, I have 4 pieces. So we have a 4x6 piece. I'm going to score on 2 short sides and 1 long side. So the 6-inch side at the top, score at half, and score at 5.5. And then rotate with the 4-inch side at the top, we'll score, at half. I have a piece that's 5 by 4.5. With the 4.5 side at the top, I'm going to score at 1/2 inch. Another piece that's 5 by 6.5 with the 6.5 side at the top, score at 1/2 inch. And then I have a piece that's 6 by 7.5 with the 6-inch side at the top, score at 1/2 inch. I will miter and burnish on the score lines. And burnish. So I am going to adhere this 4 by 6-inch piece that we've scored 3 times on the bottom flap. So that's the 5 by 4.5 inch piece. All right, and burnish. We'll burnish here. Yes, I probably should have put tape in there, but it being such a small piece, I'm sure I'll have a piece of paper to go entirely from the top to the bottom. So I'm not worried about it. All right, before I put that on, I'm going to take this 5 by 6.5 inch piece and adhere that to the center of, centering it on here. There's about a little less than 1/4 inch on the side for there. And then the bottom flap, making sure it's lined up here. Going to center it so it's parallel to these sides, but along the bottom. So actually this will go on top. I'll probably round the corners, and this will go like that, and that'll go like that. Or actually, if I did it this way, I don't know, I'm not sure how I'm going to do it. We shall see. But now I'm going to take this and put this to the side of the back of page 2. Making sure the sides are even, the bottom and top are parallel to the page. All right, so we're done with that. So the front of page 3 is very simple. It's just a large side-loading flap that later we'll put a photo mat in. All right, for the front of page 3, I have one piece that's 5 by 8.5. With the 8.5 side at the top, I'm going to score it 1/2 inch and at 8, and then rotate. So the 5-inch side is at the top and score it 1/2 inch. So this is going to be a side loading pocket. I'll miter the corners at the top and right across the X on the bottom. and fold and burnish on our score lines. And I'm just going to glue down this side tab and then add some tape first. Whoops. And then I'll glue what is actually the top and bottom tab. And pucker it just so that will fit. All right, that's it for the front of page 3. All right, we're already at the back of page 3. Are you excited? So what that is just 2 flaps on the side, and I did put a cut apart on the front and the magnet is under it, but the flaps will open and then there's a pocket inside. So that is all there is to the back of page 3. All right, for the back of page 3, I have 2 pieces that are cut 4.5 by 7.5. With the 4.5 side at the top, I'm going to score it 1/2 inch. And then I have a piece that's 5 by 7.5. With the 7.5 inside at the top, score at 5/8 at 7, rotate, and with the 5-inch side, I'll score at 1/2 inch. I will go ahead and miter all of my corners. Almost done. Just a couple more pieces to cut, and we're done with putting the features in the book. So it goes pretty quick. It's the decorating that sometimes can take some time, but that's the fun part. I would say that's the creative part, but it's all creative part, isn't it? All right, I will fold and burnish on these score lines. And here is the back of page 3. So one of these will go on the left and one will go on the right. So let's do that first. Put it on the page, not on the hinge. Make sure the bottom is even to the bottom of the page. And burnish. And do the same with this other one. Parallel to the bottom of the page. And then open that up, and then we're going to put this in between those. So I'm going to first add glue to the very bottom. Centering it on the page. There should be ample room for the flaps to close. I'm going to grab tape and put it on the bottom there. And then I'll glue down these sides. And I see that's coming up, so I'll just glue that a little bit more and burnish. And there we go. We'll have to figure out some kind of closure for that, but I'll do that when we address that page. The front of page 4 is simply a flap with photo mats. I'm going to cut this paper, but we won't adhere it until we get this background paper put on. So I'll just put it next to this. So let's cut the paper. And all you need for the front of that page is a piece that's 5 3/8 by 6 1/2. I have the 5 3/8 side at the top, and I'm going to score at 1 inch. And then when you put the decorative paper down, we'll just adhere this flap. I'll put a magnet here, a magnet below the photo mat, and that's all there is to that page. And similar to the front of page 4, the back of page 4, we don't adhere until we have our pattern paper on. And it's just simply 2 pockets. Now, of course, you will be using scraps to fill the pockets, but for now, I'll show you how to make the 2 pockets. All right, for the 2 pockets for the back of page 4, you need 2 pieces. One is 5 by 6 and one is 3 by 6. We'll put the 6 inch side at the top, score it 1/2 inch and 5 1/2. Rotate that so the 5 inch side is at the top and score at 1/2 inch. With the 3 by 6, just score at 1/2 inch and at 5 1/2. Now we'll go ahead and miter the bottom of the pocket. I don't really need to do the top. I guess we could have mitered the top too. But miter across the score lines where everything meets, and let's burnish. And once you've adhered the paper, you'll put down the 3 by 6 pocket and then the 5 by 6 pocket right on top of that, and attach your pattern paper. And that's all you need to do for the back of page 4. And our final page is the inside back cover. So that's basically just a flap with a pocket. So let me show you how to cut that out. For the inside back cover, we'll need a piece 6 1/2 by 6 7/8 and a piece 4 1/2 by 7 7/8. The 6 1/2 by 6 7/8, the 6 1/2 side will be at the top, and we'll simply score it 1/2 inch. We'll go ahead and round the corners on the bottom part. I always like my corners rounded on flaps over a pocket, just how I like it. And then for the flap I'm sorry, for the bottom pocket with the 7 7/8 side at the top, score it 1/2 inch, rotate, score it 1/2 inch, the shorter sides at the top, and then rotate again, score it 1/2 inch, and then go ahead and miter the corners, fold, and burnish. Now I've already put it in the book and I did not record it, but it's pretty easy to do. You're just going to take the pocket and put it there on the back, and then the flap is centered on the top. And that's all there is for making all the elements in the Graphic 45 P.S. I Love You book. There will be another video that shows you some different decorating tips. I don't take you through all of the decorating, but a couple of pages where I thought there were some special features, I do show you. So that is linked in the description box below, and as well the walkthrough. If you want a full walkthrough, that's listed in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching, and have a fabulous day.